Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Sands, and today we have the honor to be joined by Marcus Baskerville, one of the co founders and the brewer of Weathered Souls Brewing Company. Um, I'm guessing if you're in Texas, you're actually probably fairly well known already in that area, but now known worldwide as the brewery that initiated the Black is Beautiful project. So thanks for joining me, Marcus.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I was really glad you were willing to take time to talk to me because I have a feeling you're probably getting a lot of requests for interviews lately.
Yes, definitely so. You're actually the fourth one I've had so far today.
Oh,
And
geez.
then yeah, I have another one when I get off this call with you at 3:15, I think, or something like that. So yeah, it like slowed down for a moment, but the now that people are starting to release the beer and stuff like that, it's definitely picking up again.
Well, then I'm extra thankful that you took some time with me.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem.
do you want to? So, where do you want to start? Do you want to start talking about Weathered Souls? I mean, our typical format is that like I'll get a background of you. We'll talk about the brewery, the start of the
hmm
brewery, or do you want to kick off talking about Black is Beautiful?
We can, I guess, talk about the brewery first and then get into Black is Beautiful. So, Weathered Souls Brewing Company, we're in San Antonio, Texas. We operate a 20 barrel, 3 vessel system. Um, let's see here. I have a little over 300 barrels worth of tank space, maybe a little over that. Um, but we're more known for stouts, barrel aged stouts, some of the fun sours that we've done in the past. But our style ranges anywhere from a light American lager, Mexican lager, all the way to your big body stouts, barley wines, stuff like that. We've been operating for a little over 3 years now. November will be our 4 year anniversary. So far things have been good. Pre-COVID anyway. We did distribution prior to that. We were in quite a bit of locations with our West Coast IPA, which was the most popular IPA in San Antonio. At the time, it was outselling all IPAs 3-1. So that was a wonderful thing. But outside of that, COVID has kind of affected us like it has everybody else, and especially with tap rooms being closed and stuff like that, it's made things a little bit difficult.
Yeah,
Um,
what is the situation in Texas right now? How?
so Texas is if you serve more than 51% alcohol, you can only do curbside.
Okay.
They don't allow deliveries or anything like that. But then you have restaurants that are open that serve way more alcohol than we do. They just serve food too, and so it's like, okay, well, I didn't know that food was the vaccine to COVID at this point, right?
Yeah, it does. It highlights a really weird situation where government is really picking winners and choosers. Wait, picking and choosing the winners and losers,
Exactly.
and a lot of times just seemingly arbitrarily, like they just decided that this is where we're going to draw the line, whether it really makes sense or not. Yeah, I was actually supposed to be in Austin right now for a beer conference,
Okay.
but that was obviously canceled due
Yeah,
to COVID.
CBC canceled back in April. That was going to be a big event for us. I had a lot of stuff planned for it. Had been brewing some beers for about a year and a half just for CBC.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
yeah, so that was a huge disappointment. But in that time, I've had time to focus on other things like this initiative. Uh, so, dealing with the Black is Beautiful initiative, it was a call originally to craft breweries within the U.S. But obviously, we can't say that anymore because we've had big beer involved now. We've had other industry leaders within the liquor business involved now, and then it's transcended to multiple countries beyond the United States. I think we're in 21 countries now, and then I think the last time I looked, we're at about 1,090 breweries in all 50 states. Um, so it was a call to breweries to participate in a collaboration of brewing American style stout, super classic recipe, medium body, uh, that super roasted character, a little bit of bitterness, that dark chocolate to it. Brew a stout, use the label that we provided, and collaborate to support social justice and inclusion. In the process of that, you would go ahead and donate 100% proceeds from this beer to local organizations, charities, foundations that support police brutality reform and legal fees. It's definitely grown since then. People are getting creative with their donations as far as who they're donating to. But one thing's for sure, they're donating to foundations and organizations that support equality and inclusion. And then from there, the third aspect is the long-term effects. So, once the beer is gone, once those donations are made, what are you going to do past that point? What are you going to do to continue to support the initiative, to continue to support equality? What changes are you going to make within your own house to, better serve those communities and better serve the people that are in them? So I've seen some amazing responses dealing with that from mentorship programs, internship programs, different things like that people are getting involved to start making a difference.
That's awesome because it's pretty easy just to brew a beer and donate some money, but those types of things are what's really going to make a difference and have the long-lasting impact.
Exactly. The beer is only one aspect of it. And so you're only going to get so much from the beer itself, right? You're going to have that conversation, and that conversation transcends to anything else that's more so up to the consumer. But those long-term goals and long-term effects are what's going to actually benefit the communities, benefit the breweries, and benefit the people that are involved. So to me, that's the most important aspect of the initiative in itself.
So let's rewind a little bit because we'll talk about Black is Beautiful in depth, but I want to go back to before Weathered Souls was even a thing. What were you doing beforehand, and what got you into brewing?
So before Weathered Souls, I was actually a fraud manager, dealing with check fraud investigations. I did that for about 7 years. And so in the course of doing that, though, I was homebrewing, learning, even got a part-time job as an assistant brewer at one point while I was still working full-time for the bank, just to kind of learn what not to do.
That's dedication.
Yeah. I think I knew once I started making decent beer at a homebrew level that I did want to pursue a professional career in brewing. I just didn't know that it was going to take me this far. I always tell people, never in my life would I ever thought that I'd be brewing beer for a living.
Well, where was this, in Texas, or?
So I'm originally from Sacramento, California. So I started home brewing with my brother, kind of a competition, that's that sibling type of thing, competition. And
it's a great motivator.
Yeah, we actually started brewing together. And then when I moved out here, it was like, all right, like it's time to get down and learn, and I'm gonna make better beer. So took it kind of seriously when I moved out here and started home brewing a lot, investing in equipment, entering competitions, learning, bringing beers to other breweries and tap rooms and different things like that for people to learn or try my beer so I can get feedback and different things like that. So I kind of knew early on what I wanted to do.
So was it a deliberate path, or did you get to the point where your hobby was out of control and you just needed to start selling beer? Because we actually have a local brewery in Frederick that, like, that's what they say happened, is that their hobby, it's two friends, and their home brewing hobby just got out of control, and if they were going to be able to keep brewing, they needed to be able to sell it.
Yeah, it kind of got to that point, but then at a certain stage, I knew it's kind of what I wanted to do. So it used to be funny because at that point I was brewing about every 2 weeks, 2 beers every 2 weeks. And so even my parents, oh, you're just brewing all that beer to get drunk, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, I have a plan. Like, I'm brewing beer a process type thing to learn. There's a goal in hand. So then that was funny because we had that conversation. Like, you guys used to hate me brewing beer in the garage, but now they're the most proud parents. So
Yeah. So how long was it from when you decided you were going to open a brewery until you were able to make Weathered Souls happen?
so I think I was still an assistant brewer at another local brewery when I decided that at some point I wanted to open a brewery. My business partner, I had met him while working for this brewery, and we used to go out and drink and hang out. So at one point, I grew unhappy working at this other local place, and I ended up leaving. Me and him were out for a drink, and I was like, Mike, I looked at him and I said, Mike, when are we going to open a brewery? And he was like, I've been waiting for you to ask me that. And so we literally started working on a business plan, I think 2 days later. So as far as the process of opening the brewery in itself, it was a little under a year and a half as far as getting everything open and situated.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah.
So
just a little over a year.
So things must have actually went fairly smoothly for you.
Yeah, we had started. I remember we started working on it. It might have been just about a year, if that. Yeah. Things went pretty smoothly. For us, it was more so trying to figure out our location and coming up with a name. I think those were the two things that took the longest out of everything.
Well, that is a perfect segue, because that's always a question I ask of where the name comes from. But before we get into that, let's take a real quick sponsor break. And then when we get back, you can tell us where the name Weathered Souls came from.
Sounds good.
If you haven't heard about our beer dinners, well, now you have. Typically, the last Tuesday of each month, we partner with a local brewery and craft an exclusive 5-course dinner. Each course is thoughtfully paired with some of the finest craft beer available. You'll meet the brewery, enjoy memorable pairings and service, and have a damn good time. Like us on Facebook to stay in the know when tickets become available, because they will sell out quick.
Idiom Brewing Company proudly offers a delicious variety of beers to satisfy the most discerning tastes. Best known for their wide array of IPAs, delicious fruited sours, and robust porters and stouts, Idiom prides themselves on continuing to innovate, utilizing new and experimental hops, local ingredients, and unique flavor profiles. Idiom has a simple goal in mind: to bring people from all walks of life together to enjoy themselves and each other. Idiom Brewing Company is located in downtown Frederick, just south of the intersection of East Street and East Patrick Street, with ample seating and directly on Carroll Creek. Right, so it's a fairly unique name. It's a really cool name. Where did that name come from?
Yeah, it's more of an ode to my business partner's dad and grandfather. That kind of, he refers to them as weathered souls. Those individuals that have kind of weathered the storm and been through a lot, but still has succeeded in life, type of situation. And so that's kind of where that name resonated from. That's cool.
My grandfather was a huge idol of mine, so I love the idea that it was to pay homage to a grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
What was your gateway beer that got you into craft beer?
So, like most people from California, it's probably Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Yeah, I would say that seems to be like 80% of not even just California, just everyone.
And then outside of that, it would probably have been Jeremiah Red from BJ's.
I think I've actually had that.
And then there was another
local BJ's here.
There was another red ale that we used to go to this local pizza spot in Sacramento called Pete's Pizza, and they had their own house beers. So this was back in like 2008, 2009, maybe 2007, 2008, and they had their own house beers, and I used to really enjoy one of the red ales, and it actually ended up turning out that Firestone was the one that contracted their beers.
I was looking at earlier your recent releases, and I really love the brown bag lunches. Well, one, it sounds delicious, and then two, I just love the name and the label art. That's really cool.
Yeah, we try to, with some of our releases and stuff, resonate with things that happen in your childhood, or fun little pop culture stuff, or fun labels and old VHS movies and stuff like that. You got to kind of stay creative at this point, especially with as many breweries as there are. It's getting kind of hard to come up with individual names that somebody hasn't used already.
Did you start off with a canning line right off the bat, or was that did you add that eventually?
We still don't have a canning line. We do mobile canning.
Contract.
Yeah,
okay.
We do mobile canning still. Hopefully that'll be something within the near future, if not too far future. We'll be able to get one.
That's something in Maryland, at least, that has happened a lot. There are a whole bunch of breweries that use this time to order canning lines because, I mean, basically everything shifted to having to sell in cans.
Be packaged at this point. So yeah, we're kind of within the same boat. Luckily, with American Canning, they've been really good about fitting our schedule as far as getting in and getting the stuff we need canned. So we haven't had that necessity of getting our own canning line yet. But hopefully it will happen soon.
But that it's at least barrelage wise, you're on the larger end of the small craft breweries.
Yeah, we do okay. Yeah, as far as the amount of barrels that we release, in part to we do a lot of distribution within San Antonio in itself. So pre-COVID, we actually had just hired a production brewer to kind of alleviate some of my stresses. But since COVID has happened, production and what we're doing has kind of shifted to more small batch beers, fun beers, stuff like that we kind of are going to sell and customers are going to come out for.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like, I mean, actually, like pretty much everyone's doing that. But what is the trend in Texas? Are sales still high, or is it been a slump and it's hard to get by there?
So the recent polls in Texas are 2 out of 3 breweries will probably close by February of next year if some things don't change around here. So yeah, it's getting pretty bad out here.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, it's a little less doom and gloom around here, but I think so many people working for the federal government in this area kind of props our economy up. So maybe like economically, we're not hit quite as badly. I think that's the only thing I can really think of. And our governor has done a lot of things to make it a little easier for breweries to operate, like enabling home delivery and shipping within the state and helping out the breweries somewhat.
Okay. Yeah, our governor in our state isn't as gracious with that. So
not quite as pro brewery.
Nah, so we'll kind of see what happens from here.
Are there a lot of craft breweries in San Antonio?
No. So you think San Antonio is the 7th largest city in the U.S., and I think collectively, and that's including the breweries that are actually physically outside of San Antonio, I think it's like 17 or 18 at this point.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's not so is San Antonio just an area where craft beer hasn't really caught on yet, or has legislation made it not as friendly for a brewery to open?
Full combination of both. The laws in Texas are very archaic when it comes to beer and breweries. But then also San Antonio's Dos Equis town, like literally.
Okay.
It's the highest city for Dos Equis in the United States. So it's a matter of conforming these customers to start drinking craft and getting more excited about drinking local. That's the big thing. Most people, they can go to the gas station, go to the store, grab them a 24-pack of their Bud Light or Modelo or whatever they're going to grab, and go about their business. So it's more so trying to teach the public, hey, you have a local beer scene here with much better beer than what you're going to buy at the grocery store. So start supporting that, buying beer from them, and try to build a relationship that way. But it's definitely been a upward hill battle so far.
So is there a lot of struggle, even just from the educational standpoint of teaching people what craft beer is and why it's
Yeah, I mean,
worth spending more than, I don't know what a 6-pack of Dos Equis is, but I'm going to guess it's on the cheaper end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, you figure San Antonio has a very large population, and I would say there might be like dedicated craft drinkers, probably like 300 to 400 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like it's not. I mean, and this is just based off of, people that you see out and about in the community and stuff like that. Like, I would say dedicated, like real dedicated, like drinkers. It's probably I'm just the even inflated some. It's definitely under 1,000 drinkers. So, I mean, considering how big the city is, I mean, in just like last year, for instance, when we had 14 breweries, I mean, the local news article released a newscast on how the brewing scene here is becoming oversaturated. And it's like, wait a second, like, there's only 14 breweries here. Like, we're nowhere near saturation at all.
So I think for reference in Frederick, which is, I mean, I would probably minuscule, it compared to San Antonio, like we're in the, I don't know, like tens of thousands for a population. We have, I'm going to get this number wrong. It's either 11 or 12 breweries in our, and since you're from San Antonio, I'll use air quotes for our downtown area. So, and we're still not considering Frederick as being saturated with breweries.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really good, though. You have a lot of upside as the trend grows there.
Yeah, San Antonio definitely has a lot of opportunity. It's just a matter of getting there.
So let's take one more quick sponsor break, and then let's dive into a little bit more of talking about Black is Beautiful, what prompted you to launch the campaign or project, and we'll get your opinion on trying McClintock's version of it for the first time, non-cocktail version. So we'll be right back. There are many reasons why I have chosen District East for where I purchase beer. I love the flexibility of being able to make a custom 6-pack or take home a crowler from one of the 8 beers on tap. Their friendly and knowledgeable staff do an amazing job at keeping a diverse selection on hand. You can even purchase artwork from the monthly featured artist. District East is located on Northeast Street in Frederick in the same shopping center as Family Mill and Rockwell Brewery. You can find today's beer lists on the District East Facebook page or at www.districteast.beer. I'm excited to announce our newest sponsor, Vanish Farmwoods Brewery. Vanish is a brewery and entertainment complex located on a 62-acre hops and apple farm in Luckett's, Virginia, just 20 minutes from Frederick, Maryland and Leesburg, Virginia. With over 20 beers on tap, a selection of wines and ciders, along with multiple food options, there is something for everyone. Vanish has live music on Saturdays and Sundays and a wide variety of special events. Go to vanishbeer.com for information on everything they have to offer. All right, so what was the moment where you decided that you were going to kick this Black is Beautiful project off?
Yeah, so it was May 28th that I went to Dallas to go hang out with the homies at Turning Point. We had did a collaboration, and on the way to Dallas on my drive, I was listening to the Breakfast Club, and they had Breonna Taylor's mom on there, and she was discussing with Angela Yee the course of events to finding out that her daughter was murdered. And that conversation was probably one of the most heart-wrenching, heartbreaking breaking conversations that I've heard in a very long time. Especially as somebody that has 2 daughters, you look at that type of stuff, and then somebody who's been through, forms of police brutality, racial discrimination, different things like that. You look at those and it hits you. Then the other thing was me driving home that night and listening to the people talk about the protests and why they were protesting and those that were involved in the protests. And then that guilt hit a little bit, like, man, I'm not out there protesting. But for me, that's not what I'm going to do to show my support or give back. So from there, I had to figure out a way as a Black business owner, as somebody who wants to give back to his community, how I could support. So originally I was going to go ahead and just do a standalone release. In the course of that weekend, I was having a conversation with Jeffrey Stuffings out of Jester King, and we were having conversations about race relationships, Trump, just the general things that were going on with COVID at our breweries. And I had sent him the mock-up label of what my original idea was. And he was like, you know what? He was like, man, this is awesome. And he was like, I would understand if you don't want to, but you should think about turning this into a collaboration. And I was like, you know what, Jeff, that's a fantastic idea. And so basically spent the next 24 hours formulating the initiative, the mission statement, coming up with the recipe, enlisted one of my bartenders to write the original WordPress website, and then Craft Peak ended up, and Stout Collective ended up joining up to help fix that a little bit. And it was literally a course of 24 hours of thinking about the initiative and then launching it.
So was it, did you reach out to a bunch of breweries to invite them to join in, or was did it just go viral quickly and places that started signing up to be a part of it?
I reached out, I think, to less than 10 people. I reached out to the homie at Finback, CM at The Answer, reached out to Kyle at Inu, Brian at Claim State, Justin from Ingenious, and then Alex from Turning Point. So 7 breweries. And then everybody else was through sharing, people tagging their favorite breweries, having that organic, kind of that organic reach of just social media. I have a very close, tight-knit section of friends within the brewing industry, and I thought it would have meant something to not contact people directly and kind of see where their hearts were and as far as their participation. So the brewing industry definitely showed out.
The response has been tremendous. It seems like every day there's another brewery promoting when their release is going to be coming out, and so it must be very heartwarming to see the response of your community, kind of actually doing what is preached a lot, that it is an inclusive community and they want to do better and be more inclusive.
Exactly. So
at this point, how many? You said it was 1,000.
I think we're sitting at around 1,090 breweries.
So it's a good percentage of the breweries out there.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider the times we're in, there's probably a lot of breweries that may just not even, like, they may want to be involved, but might not be able to financially be able to.
Well, to say to that, get in where you can fit in. This isn't a beer that has to be brewed tomorrow. It's not a beer that has to be brewed a month from now. If you feel strongly about what this initiative is about, get signed up and brew the beer when you can. I mean, and even then, if you don't have the capacity to brew a 10-barrel, 15, 20-barrel batch, go ahead and brew a 5-barrel batch, a 1-barrel batch. Have it as a specialty release within the tap room or brewery, crowlers or whatever the case may be. Dealing with issues like this, I don't really tend to accept, I guess, excuses.
And rightly so.
Yeah, so if you feel strongly about this initiative, if you feel strongly about what it's about, you feel strongly about social justice, inclusion, equality, uh, building that message, building more of a foundations within your communities and the people around you, and bridging that gap, then you're going to go ahead and get involved. Um, you know, get in where you can fit in, and then even then, once you get signed up, you get access to all of the vendors and sponsors that have assisted. There's multiple vendors and sponsors that are offering free ingredients, discounted ingredients. There's people that are helping with packaging, labeling, design work. So, I mean, money is always a concern, especially during COVID, but there's definitely avenues to alleviate some of that for sure.
Yeah, I guess I was more talking about like some of the breweries on the extreme end who have had to like cut production almost completely because they just like can't even afford to continue brewing.
Yes, it's a little bit different, obviously.
Yeah, not just
can't-
people are like, oh, it's kind of tight financially. I don't.
Yeah, like there was a brewery that was in the city that I grew up with, that is local, and it's a very demographic city. And they had some long-winded excuse about why they didn't participate, and it was just like the old Peanuts teacher that wah 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 wah. That's all I heard reading that text message or reading that response. So, it's if this is something that you feel very strongly about, then go ahead and get signed up. And nobody's rushing the production. If this is something that is brewed 2 years from now, I mean, you're still helping the cause. The money is still being donated to a local charity, and you're still making a willingness to make some change, regardless of when it happens. Inequality and injustice isn't going away anytime soon. So,
in what you mentioned earlier too, the overarching and even more important aspect of it, the programs put in place. You mentioned internships and education aspect of it.
mm-hmm.
So have you had a chance to try many versions that have been brewed?
Tried a few, yeah. We've been receiving some packages from a lot of people lately. So I've tried to at least try one every few days or so. Not to indulge too much, but the plan is to have like a huge share and try a whole bunch of them at the same time.
Oh, cool.
But I've tried a few of them that have come in and have really enjoyed some of the ones that I've had so far.
Are most places brewing just to the recipe, or most breweries putting their own spin?
Most of the ones I've had so far have been, they're kind of their own spins, and that's what we wanted. With all the breweries that are involved, you don't want people to come up with 1,100 of the same stout. So to see those different variations, to see people's different spins, the different blends and stuff, it's been fun.
It also helps with that collecting mentality too, where people are going to want to get as many as they can get access to because they want to compare them to each other and collect as many as possible.
Yep.
Is it an in-house artist that did the artwork for the?
Kevin Katie Designs out in Austin, Texas. He's done our labels for us for a little over the last 3 years. So basically, I presented to him kind of the idea structure of what I wanted with the different hues of black. And then outside of that, I told him, I was like, I'm going to see how woke you are, Kevin, and just let you go from there. So he did a fantastic job getting the label situated. I mean, even the different variations that he's done with us, with Tommy Smith and Martin Luther King and John Lewis and all of the other variations that we've had, it's been great. So kudos to Kevin for a job well done.
I feel like it's probably obvious and self-explanatory, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What was the inspiration for the name, and where did the name come from?
So the name was the first aspect that I came up with for the initiative. I was trying to think of something that would resonate with people. Dealing with the amount of inequality that's been going on. I mean, the amount of just the lack of respect that we've seen. And like I've said, I've been through the racial profiling and different things like that. Being told going into a store I have to take my hood off, or being pulled over by the police for having a nice car when I was younger and living in a predominantly white neighborhood. So I've been through all of that. So thinking of something that would resonate with people, thinking of something that would support and be just blatant as far as what the message is, but still holding some regard and respect to it.
Yeah.
So that's where the Black is Beautiful name came from. And then once that name came about, I guess it was just almost a no-brainer to go with the stout recipe.
And I know Idiom said they followed the recipe fairly close and just put a little bit of their own spin on it. It's really good.
Good.
I'm not a huge stout person. I'm more of a, your typical craft beer junkie of IPAs and fruited sours. Although I love actually super bitter and West Coast style IPAs. But this is a really enjoyable stout, and I know theirs is close to your recipe. But the other thing we should talk about is I want to get your feedback on the whiskey, because from what I understand, you are actually somewhat of a whiskey aficionado.
I wouldn't say aficionado.
Or fan. We'll say fan.
Yeah, I enjoy
enthusiast.
It. Yeah, I enjoy a good pour of bourbon or some whiskey. That's kind of been more so what I've been getting into more than beer lately.
So have there been any other team ups for Black is Beautiful like this one with Idiom and McClintock, or has this been a unique spin on the project?
So the only other distillery that I know of that has produced work for a whiskey for this is Andalusia Distillery up in Blanco, Texas, and they're going to be doing they brewed the beer, they're distilling it, and then they're going to age it in barrels for 2 years and release a whiskey. They're in Blanco, but outside of that, no. I want to say this is definitely the first one that has been released.
That's cool. So when they contacted you, because I think they did, they contacted you and told you were going to do this. Were you full on board with it?
Yeah, I was excited. I was like, "What? A whiskey company wants to turn it into some whiskey?" Told my sales manager, "Let him go ahead and do it."
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little bummed. I was hoping, because Braden said he was going to try to send you some of the hopped whiskey that I made with him last year, but I guess he either forgot or maybe didn't have any left to send some of that. But this is good too.
So yeah, check it out. So yeah, I was saying earlier, the wife wanted a cocktail yesterday, so I was like, you know what, this might be a good variation for a Manhattan, and I think I'm going to actually blend it into a old fashioned tonight. I made a coffee bitters with some Monster coffee a couple weeks ago, so I think that would actually be a really good accent to that, maybe with a rye whiskey to top it off.
I'm super lazy, so I just put some ice cubes in a glass and
so you definitely get heavy cacao nib up front.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, it's just smooth like milk chocolate. And then you get a little of that whiskey alcohol nose on the back end, a little bit of the astringency. Oh, that's actually pretty good.
Especially, I mean, for our super young.
I was just about to say, for super young whiskey that doesn't have much age on it, I don't get much astringency. It still has a decent little body to it. You get a nice balance of the nibs. this is good.
Yeah, McClintock does a lot of collaboration with local breweries where they'll distill sometimes like a beer that didn't turn out well. They distill it and turn it into something. But then they've done several collaborative projects where a brewery just brews something. It turned out fine. They buy it from them and they distill it into because they have a couple right now with a local one that have been aging for like 2 years that they made.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is tasty, and it's probably going to be really good in this old fashioned that I'm going to make later today.
So when you started Black is Beautiful, did you anticipate it was going to become this large of an effort with as many places signing on and all the creativity that's been put behind it?
Give me that question one more time.
What did you anticipate it becoming as big as it did, or have you been blown away?
No, this is definitely a very prideful, humbling experience for sure. I would have never thought that we would have seen over 1,000 breweries show up for this initiative. So now that I've seen that many, I definitely want to see a lot more. But originally I thought it was going to be like maybe 200, 250. Which was still been a lot, but to see it, gain this much respect with brewers and them show their involvement, I mean, this is like the most humbling experience I've ever had.
And it hasn't been just small ones. You alluded there were macro breweries that have jumped on board, but then there's also like some of your largest, most popular breweries have also participated.
There soon. I'm a huge fan of Russian River. They released one. They just actually posted that they ended up donating, I think, 17,000 from the sales.
Oh wow!
Firestone's one of my favorite breweries involved. And then you have some of the like top stout producers like Perennial. That's my favorite barrel aged stout producer. So to see them involved, as from the whole consumer aspect, that got me all excited. Then breweries like Side Project, The Answer, AleSmith, all of these breweries that have garnered respects for the stouts that they produce, and to see their involvement and them wanting to help out, it's definitely an amazing thing.
The Answer one that was pretty interesting. Is that gold flake it's in it, or glitter, or what did they put in that?
So it's gold glitter.
Okay.
I know that originally they did add some gold flakes, but it was very costly and it didn't take like the way they wanted to, so they ended up adding some additional glitter to it.
And that was a cool one too, because that was a collaboration between 5 or so different people. I mean, there was the brewery. Were there 2 breweries or just one?
Just the one brewery, and
then Eric Jackson.
Yeah, some home brewers, and different little things like that, like Shannon and Eric and CM got involved. Black Ninja did the glass for it, so they turned it into a huge collaboration.
Yeah, that one was. I thought that was one of the cooler ones that I saw, especially when you post a picture of a stout filled with gold glitter. It's going to attract some attention. And I guess the answer being the answer, they couldn't just release something that was normal.
Yeah, they had to go and get creative. So that was definitely a fun one.
So I typically ask this question of normally just like people who aren't in the industry but are like influencers or journalists or like that. But I assume there's probably been a moment like this for you too. Like, what is the coolest experience or moment that this has brought to you?
I think the coolest thing about this so far has been the prideful look that I see on my parents' face, to be honest. I'm very family oriented, that type of thing. And so to see my parents that excited about what's going on and they know their son is trying to make an effort and change. I think that's the biggest thing. I have older parents. My dad just turned 70 on Monday. My mom's 66. My grandma's 92. So, my dad was alive during the civil rights movement. My grandma was alive and well during the end of slavery. So I would say, the prideful look on my parents' face has been the most rewarding thing out of it. But outside of that, the most fun would have probably been the New York Times photo shoot yesterday.
Oh, cool. Yeah, the little tiny newspaper I work for doesn't compare to the New York Times. Well, that should give you a nice bump in exposure.
Right. So I'll be excited when that comes out for sure.
But that is probably the best answer I've ever received to that question. That's great. That's very heart warming, because it probably does mean a lot to your parents.
Definitely so. Yeah.
And then I don't know how old your daughters are, but if they aren't old enough right now already, at some point they're going to be extremely proud of you for what the initiative
very much still on the younger side. Yeah, 3 and 1.
Not quite old enough to be proud of daddy for this particular thing.
But hopefully, this thing continues on well past the years to come, and so maybe they'll get involved in it one day in time.
So do you have the plan to try to keep pumping energy behind this so that it does stay forefront and continues to be in people's minds, instead of it just being, I brewed the beer, now let's just go do something else?
Exactly. This is something that we want to keep prevalent, keep in people's minds, and kind of keep it going.
What I think you probably already answered it, because you said it was your favorite barrel-aged stouts, but what brewery were you most excited about when they signed on?
The most excited brewery. At the time, I would probably say, because of stout wise and the beer that is being brewed, not just because they are participating, but just because of who they are in the stout producer world, I would probably say Perennial.
Okay, I figured you were going to say that from your earlier comments. What is the best Marvel movie?
I would say the best Iron Man movie is Winter Soldier.
That's good. I like that one. It would
go Winter Soldier for me.
Yeah, if someone asked me that, I wouldn't even be able to answer. I like so many, but I just know there are several Marvel things in frame of your video that you're obviously a fan.
I'm a huge comic book fan, and then the one in the back was actually, we did a Black Panther beer called Long Live the King for the Black Panther release. Back in, what was that, 2016?
Yeah.
So we did it for Alamo Draft House, and did a statewide release for Black Panther, and one of their artists ended up doing that. But then in the process of that, we actually had a private showing for the premiere, and that's when I proposed to my wife, was during a private showing of Black Panther. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. What has this done for exposure for Weathered Souls?
So I mean, it's still been kind of slow during COVID, and we're the catalyst of this, but the initiative's not about us. So I mean, we've had a ton of more exposure, 10 of more followers. Obviously, we're getting a lot of media attention and stuff like that. We've had some retail attention. So it's definitely benefited us as far as staying, as far as the exposure rate we're having. But I've tried to not engulf, ourselves too much into the initiative. We want it to be more so about the message and, the beer and getting things out there. But yeah, I mean, exposure wise, I think we've had almost, 15,000 new followers since the start of the initiative. So it's definitely, got our name out there for sure. got me a few collabs and stuff like that I probably would have never got. So, I can't complain.
It's probably gotten to the point that if you call someplace, they're going to talk to you, no matter who it is now.
Yeah, something like that.
Have you received any negativity, or is it?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Of course. I hate people.
I've had other brewery friends receive messages like the homie Brian from Claim Steak in Rancho Cordova posted a screenshot yesterday of the whole you come out with a blackest beautiful beer, when's the whitest beautiful beer coming out, that type of thing. We had some lady call the brewery the other day trying to say she was offended about the beer, and as a white woman she was offended that we were coming out with this beer and we were racist for it. So, there's been those type of phone calls, those type of messages. But at the end of the day, like my staff, for instance, they get really upset when we get these messages and stuff like that. But what I tell them is, at the end of the day, I'm 35 and I've been black my whole life. So it's not anything new that I haven't heard, not anything new that I haven't seen. So we just kind of laugh at it and keep it moving.
I guess I naively hoped that you were going to say no. There hasn't been much.
No, we've definitely.
But I know that was a stupid thought.
And then I mean, look at some of these Facebook posts from other breweries. So Samuel Adams, for instance, which is in a super racist city. I mean, you should have seen some of the responses that they got to their involvement. But I thought they handled it very well, and we appreciate everybody's support that is supporting, because I know for some of these breweries, it may be hard for them dealing with the specific locations that they're in.
Yeah.
But hey, it is what it is.
Thankfully, I don't think I've seen any negative responses in Maryland, at least to the breweries when they've announced stuff, or they've quickly deleted things.
Yeah.
But I haven't. Thankfully, I haven't witnessed anything of people in Maryland.
They don't delete anything. Let the racists show themselves. So we all know.
Yeah, they should.
They are in the future, right?
Yeah. Well, I know you mentioned you have another interview coming right up, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of break in between having to talk to people. How sick and tired of telling the same story over and over again are you? Or did I get you early enough where you aren't sick of it yet?
Now I've been trying to be creative about telling the story differently so it doesn't all sound the same. But I'm very much the huge introvert. So it's definitely been a change for me, speaking and conversing as much as I am. I haven't had to do that in a very long time.
Well, I wouldn't have guessed that at all. So,
like as a brewer, you can kind of just put your headphones in on the brew floor, shut your doors, and don't have to like physically deal with anybody. So it's definitely been a change these last couple of months.
All right. Well, tell me something you haven't told anyone else yet. I want a special story.
Let's see here.
No, that was kind of an unfair question. Or
I don't think there's anything to share yet. I'll give you some information on the 18th of August.
Oh, so something big is right around the corner?
Yeah, something I can't share just yet.
Okay. Is it collaboration-wise or Weathered Soul? Like, can you give at least what category it falls into?
It's more Marcus Baskerville, but / Weathered Soul.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, I want to congratulate you on the success. It's great, at least the positive response side. I'm glad that it has been so phenomenally successful for the program and for you personally. And thank you so much for the time you've taken with me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And cheers. I'm glad you enjoyed what we did out here in Frederick.
Try the Boot Jack next.
And thank you, everyone. Actually, Boot Jack is really good. You're going to love that one.
Reviews. Yeah, I actually looked up the reviews and I said, oh, this is actually supposed to be a really good bottle.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. Cheers.
Cheers, sir. Have a good day.
Uncapped is brought to you with support from McClintock Distilling, Maryland's first and only organic certified distillery. They are well known for their award-winning gin and are rapidly growing a name for themselves for their Matchstick Bourbon and Bootjack Rye Whiskey that have both won double gold at international spirits competitions. You can visit them in historic downtown Frederick along Carroll Creek for tours and tastings. Go to McClintockDistilling.com for more information.